The sun had already dipped behind the skeletal trees when Clara Benson first saw him, a German shepherd, dirty and shivering, pawing at the edge of the old Thompson barn. His barking was desperate, hollow, almost human in its urgency, echoing across the empty fields. The barn had been abandoned for years, whispered about by locals as a place where things went missing and sometimes never returned. Clara stepped closer, heart pounding, the air thick with the scent of decaying hay and cold earth. Something inside that barn wasn't just forgotten, it was waiting. And the dog knew. Clara Benson's boots crunched over the frost-hardened ground, each step echoing in the hollow quiet of the late afternoon. The fields around the old Thompson barn were empty now, stripped bare by early winter, and the skeletal trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches scratching at the pale sky like desperate fingers. The German shepherd, a shadowed figure against the collapsing red siding, barked again, sharp, urgent, and unrelenting. It was a sound that made Clara's stomach tighten, a plea that seemed almost human. She had lived her entire life in Ridgeway, a town so small that secrets didn't stay hidden, they festered. And the Thompson barn had always been one of those secrets. Nobody went there anymore. The place was steeped in whispers. Kids dared each other peek inside, but no one lingered long. Stories of missing animals, strange noises, and the occasional sighting of lights when the town was asleep had woven themselves into local legend. Clara had laughed at it as a girl. Now, standing at the edge of the frozen field, she wasn't laughing. The dog barked again, running a few paces toward the barn before stopping and turning to look at her, ears pricked, tail stiff. It was almost a gesture. Come closer. Hurry. Clara swallowed the knot in her throat and knelt in the snow. Hey, boy, it's okay, she murmured. The dog's dark eyes flicked up to her face. There was a weight there, an intelligence that unsettled her. He wasn't just lost. He was trying to tell her something. She had noticed a collar first, an old leather strap, cracked with age, but there was a tag dangling from it. The metal glinted in the dying light, but she couldn't make out the letters. There was something familiar about it, a name she couldn't place. Clara stepped closer to the barn, brushing frost from her coat, her breath forming small clouds in the icy air. The German shepherd barked again, then darted to the side, circling a rotting plank that had fallen from the barn side. The dog nosed at it, growling low, and Clara felt her heart tighten. She reached the plank and, with careful hands, pushed it aside. The air that hit her was different from the frozen night outside, musty, heavy, carrying the faint metallic tang of rust, and something else. Inside, the barn smelled of decay and hay, the floor scattered with broken tools and old crates. Moonlight streamed through cracks in the wooden siding, casting long shadows across the dust motes that danced in the cold air. The German shepherd pressed forward, sniffing along the ground, then froze in the corner, fur bristling. Clara followed his gaze. At first, she saw nothing, then a movement. A small bundle, tucked beneath a pile of fraying tarps, stirred. Clara's hand went to her mouth. Someone is there? Her voice was barely more than a whisper, swallowed by the barn's emptiness. The dog barked again, low and insistent. She stepped closer, heart hammering. Pulling back the tarp revealed a small figure, shivering violently. A child, maybe 10 or 11, curled into herself, dirt smeared across her face, hair matted. Her eyes, wide and fearful, met Clara's. "Oh, my God!" Clara sank to her knees. It's okay, you're safe now." The child's lips trembled, but she didn't speak. Instead, she clutched a ragged blanket to her chest, rocking slightly. The German shepherd nudged her gently with his nose, a low whine vibrating through his chest. Clara glanced around, suddenly aware of the barn's other details. The broken lock on the side door, the remnant of canned food stacked in a corner, and, most disturbing, a set of footprints leading from the rear of the barn to the child's hiding spot. They were too large to be hers, too heavy for a child. Someone had been here, and judging by the smears of mud and blood, they hadn't left lightly. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She ignored it. This was Ridgeway. Calling for help was easy, but help wouldn't arrive fast enough. Not for this. "Can you tell me your name?" Clara asked gently, reaching out. The child flinched but didn't move away. "And Mia," she whispered. Her voice was faint, almost drowned in the dog's low growl. "Mia, it's okay. I'm Clara. I'm going to get you out of here." The dog barked, loud and sudden, and Clara froze. From the far corner of the barn, the sound of movement, soft, deliberate, shifted her attention. Someone else was there, watching. She turned, and a man stepped out from the shadows. Mid-30s, wearing a worn jacket and jeans, his face tense and hard. His eyes flicked over her, then the child. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, voice tight, controlled. Clara instinctively stepped between him and the child. "I could ask you the same thing," she said. "Who is she? Why is she here?" The man's jaw clenched. This isn't your business." His hand twitched toward the barn door, a motion Clara didn't miss. She noted the way the snow near his boots was disrupted. He had walked to the field deliberately, leaving prints in the frost. The German shepherd growled, low and threatening, ears flat. The man hesitated. That pause was all Clara needed. She grabbed Mia's arm gently and pulled her toward the exit. "Come on," she whispered, keeping her voice calm. "We need to get out of here." The man cursed, but he didn't follow. Instead, he retreated back into the shadows, melting into the darkness of the barn. Clara didn't wait to see if he would come back. She focused on the child, on the dog, and on getting them out. Outside, the cold night air bit their faces. The snow crunched underfoot. Clara held Mia close, whispering soothing words as the German shepherd ran ahead, scanning the perimeter, alert and protective. Why was he in there? Mia asked finally, voice trembling. Her words were clipped, cautious, as though speaking too loudly might summon the man again. Clara shook her head. "I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. I promise." The dog barked once more, a sharp, commanding note, as if in agreement, and somewhere deep in quiet Ridgeway, Clara felt it. The start of a story that wouldn't let her rest, a mystery tied to this barn, this child, and the dog who wouldn't leave her side. As she led Mia toward her car, she glanced down at the German shepherd. His fur was matted, his eyes tired but unyielding. "You've got a story too, don't you?" she murmured. The dog tilted his head, almost knowingly, as if acknowledging her question. And in that moment, Clara realized the truth. Ridgeway had secrets, yes, but this was something bigger. Something human, painful, and unforgiving. Something that had already broken hearts. She tightened her grip on Mia's hand. Somewhere down the empty road, past the skeletal trees and frozen fields, help would come. But first, they had to survive the night. And survive the night they would, together. The warmth of the car was immediate, almost shocking after the icy fields of Ridgeway. Clara kept her hands on the wheel, one eye on the rearview mirror, where Mia sat clutching the dog's collar. The German shepherd had settled on the back seat, head resting on his paws, but his ears twitched with every sound outside. Wind against the roof, the crunch of tires on gravel, the faint howl of something distant. Clara didn't speak at first. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken fear. Mia's eyes were wide, still brimming with tears, but now there was something else, hesitation, as if each word she spoke might summon danger. Finally, she whispered, He's gonna come back, isn't he?" Clara's stomach twisted. She hadn't seen the man well, but his presence in that barn carried a weight of authority, maybe even obsession. "I don't know," she said softly, "but we'll make sure you're safe. Right now, that's what matters." The dog growled low in his throat, a subtle warning, and Clara glanced at him. His gaze was fixed on the road ahead, alert. She realized then that he had guided them safely from the barn. He hadn't just been a lost dog. He had known where danger lurked, how to navigate it. When they reached Clara's modest house on the edge of town, the smell of wood smoke from her fireplace greeted them, a small comfort. She helped Mia inside and offered her a blanket, while the dog padded cautiously into the living room. His ears flicked at every creak and groan of the old house. "Do you want some hot chocolate?" Clara asked, keeping her tone light. It was a feeble attempt to bridge the distance between them. Mia nodded silently, sitting on the sofa, the blanket wrapped tightly around her. As Clara stirred milk in the kitchen, she glanced toward the window. The barn was miles away now, a distant shadow, but the memory of the man's presence lingered like a dark stain on her mind. She poured the hot chocolate, handing the cup to Mia. The girl took it with trembling hands, sniffing the warmth before taking a cautious sip. Finally, Clara sat across from her. "Mia, I need you to tell me what happened. I need the truth." The child flinched, biting her lip. I can't," she whispered. He said if I told anyone, he'd. Her voice broke, and she pressed the blanket harder against her chest. Clara nodded, trying to calm the lump of fear in her throat. "I understand, but I promise you I won't let him hurt you. Not here. Not ever." Mia's eyes flicked toward the dog, as if seeking reassurance. The German shepherd nudged her gently, a low whine vibrating in his chest. He saved me," Mia admitted finally. "I didn't think anyone would find me." The night deepened outside, shadows stretching across the walls of Clara's living room. She glanced at the dog again. His eyes seemed almost human in their understanding. Clara realized then that this animal had been more than a companion. He had been a protector, a silent witness to the horrors Mia had endured. Clara decided she needed help, someone who could navigate the darker corners of Ridgeway. She reached for her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. The line rang twice before a familiar voice answered, cautious, weary. "Detective Harper?" she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's Clara. I found a girl. She's in danger." There was a pause, a breath held across the miles of silence. "Clara, where are you? Who's with her?" "No time to explain everything," Clara replied. "She's safe for now, but I need your help. Please, come as soon as you can." The line went quiet for a moment. Then the detective's voice, sharper now, carried determination. "I'll be there. Don't move her. And keep the dog with her. He might be more important than you think." Clara hung up and exhaled. She felt the weight of the night pressing down, a pressure she couldn't ignore. Something told her this wasn't just about the child or the barn. There were deeper layers here. Layers of betrayal, secrets, and sins long buried beneath Ridgeway's quiet exterior. Hours passed slowly. Clara kept watch over Mia, who finally fell asleep, her body curled against a blanket, the dog lying protectively beside her. Clara couldn't sleep. She kept pacing the living room, glancing at the window, every shadow, every flicker of movement, setting her nerves on edge. Then, a knock on the door. Clara's heart jumped. She approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. A man's silhouette stood in the darkness. Detective Harper. Relief washed over her, tempered with tension. She opened the door. "Clara," he said, his voice low, "I got your call. Where's the girl?" "In here," Clara said, leading him to the living room. Mia stirred, opening her eyes briefly before settling back against the blanket. The detective nodded, his eyes scanning the room, lingering on the dog. "She knows more than she's saying," he said, crouching slightly. "And that dog, he's been with her the entire time. I've seen animals act like this only once or twice in my career. Like they're guarding a secret, not just a person." Clara nodded. "I felt that from the first moment I saw him at the barn." Harper's eyes hardened. "Then we're dealing with more than just a missing child. There's someone using fear to control her, maybe for years. We need to find out who, and we need to do it carefully. This town, it doesn't forgive easily, and someone is likely covering tracks." As they spoke, the dog suddenly stiffened, ears flat, teeth bared. Clara turned, heart racing. At the window, a figure was moving in the shadows. Harper reached for his coat, eyes narrowing. "Stay inside," he warned. The figure hesitated at the edge of the porch, then retreated. The tension in the room didn't ease. Clara realized Ridgeway wasn't just a town of quiet streets and fields. It was a town where watching, waiting, and hiding had been a way of life for some people, and the past had a way of reaching out when least expected. Harper spoke quietly, almost to himself. "We're going to have to dig into every corner. Friends, family, neighbors. If he's this bold, he's had help, or someone's turning a blind eye." Clara shivered. She thought of the man in the barn, the cold efficiency of his gaze, the way he had receded into shadows without pursuit. There was malice there, but there was also familiarity, as if he had been waiting for someone to uncover the truth. Hours later, when the detective left to make calls and check leads, Clara remained with Mia and the dog. She watched the child sleep, noticing the tremor in her hands and the way the blanket was clutched tightly. She thought of betrayal of trust and how fragile both could be in a town like Ridgeway. The dog shifted beside Mia, head on her lap now, almost guarding her even in rest. Clara whispered softly, "We'll find out who hurt you and why. I promise." But deep inside, she knew this promise would carry them down a path filled with lies, dangerous secrets, and choices no one would be proud of. The night wore on, shadows lengthened, and the faint howl of wind carried a message. Ridgeway's darkness was far from spent, and the barn was only the beginning. Somewhere in the distance, the crunch of footsteps in snow hinted that the story was far from over. And Clara, despite every instinct screaming to flee, knew she wouldn't abandon Mia. Not now, not ever. Outside, the German shepherd's low growl broke the silence once more, a warning that the night still had eyes, and some truths were better left uncovered, but some, inevitably, would find their way to the light. Dawn broke over Ridgeway, pale and brittle, spilling light across frozen fields and skeletal trees. Clara had barely slept, keeping one ear attuned to every sound. The soft whine of the German shepherd, Mia's shallow breathing, the creak of the old house settling in the cold. Outside, the wind whispered to the gaps in the wooden siding, carrying the faint, almost imperceptible scent of the barn. By mid-morning, Detective Harper returned, his expression grim. "I've traced the footprints around the barn," he said, spreading a notebook on the kitchen table. "They're recent. Whoever was there, they've been back since last night." Clara's stomach sank. "You mean he—" "Yes," Harper interrupted, voice low. "The man who kept Mia, he's watching, waiting. He knows someone is after him." Mia stirred at the mention, eyes widening with fear. She clutched the blanket tighter. The dog nudged her gently, growling softly, ears flat. Clara reached over, holding her hand. "We're going to stop him," she said firmly. Together, they decided to return to the barn, carefully, deliberately, with backup. Harper called for a small team from the Ridgeway precinct, but Clara insisted on leading them, trusting the dog's instinct above all. The German shepherd had guided her once. If there was a way into the barn safely, he would find it again. The approach was tense. The air smelled of frost and decay, and every snapping twig seemed louder than it should be. The barn silhouette loomed ahead, dark and broken, like a wound in the landscape. The dog ran ahead, ears pricked, pausing occasionally to sniff or circle. Harper's team followed at a distance, cautious, hands on weapons. Inside, the barn was quieter than Clara remembered, almost eerily so. Dust motes hung in the air, caught in the weak morning light, streaming through the cracks. The tarp covering the corner where Mia had been hidden last night had been disturbed. The ground scratched as if someone had been there recently. Clara's heart pounded. "He's here," she whispered. A sudden noise, a door creaking, made them all freeze. The detective signaled for the team to spread out. The dog barked sharply, low and controlled, leading Clara toward the back of the barn. And there, behind a stack of old crates, they found him, the man from last night. But the shock was immediate, visceral. He wasn't alone. A frail, elderly woman sat with her back against the wall, her hands bruised and tied with rope. Her eyes were wide, terrified, yet strangely resigned. Clara's breath caught. "Grandma," she whispered, stunned. The man turned, rage flashing across his features. "Stay back," he shouted, advancing. Harper raised his weapon, steady, hands where I can see them. The dog growled, stepping between Clara and the man, hackles raised. The tension in the barn was palpable, every shadow, every creaking board magnified in the silence. It was then that the truth began to unravel. The elderly woman was Mrs. Thompson, the very same who had owned the barn decades ago. And the child, Mia, it turned out, was her granddaughter, hidden away to protect her from a man, a distant relative with a long history of obsession and violence. He had been manipulating both of them for years, hiding Mia in the barn while controlling the grandmother through threats and fear. Clara's heart ached at the revelation. The German shepherd barked, nipping at the man's heels, urging him back. He seemed almost to understand the stakes. The family's fragile bond, the betrayal, and the danger. Harper moved in, and with careful coordination, the man was restrained. He struggled, his face twisted with fury and denial, but the team's presence of the dog's relentless vigilance left him no escape. Mia ran to her grandmother, tears streaming as the woman gathered her in a trembling embrace. The years of fear, the silence, the manipulation, all seemed to pour out in that moment, filling the bar with sobs and whispered reassurances. Clara stepped back, watching, the German shepherd at her side. She realized that the dog had been the unseen guardian, the link between them, the one who had bridged the gap between captivity and freedom. The aftermath was a blur. Statements, medical checks, the quiet presence of the detective ensuring everyone was safe. Ridgway would talk, of course. News of the rescue would spread, but for Clara, the personal triumph was quiet, intimate, and profound. That evening, she sat by the fire with Mia and Mrs. Thompson, the dog curled up at their feet. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic declarations, just the warmth of fire, the taste of tea, and the slow, careful unwrapping of trust that had been broken for years. Mia looked at Clara and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up." Clara smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "You didn't need saving, Mia. You needed someone to see you, and we all did what we could." The German shepherd lifted his head, amber eyes catching the firelight. He had stayed when he was needed most, silent but insistent, a moral compass of fur and instinct. Clara reached down, stroking his head. "You're a hero," she murmured. Days passed, and Ridgway slowly returned to its quiet rhythm, but the story of the barn, the lost child, and the dog lingered in the town's collective consciousness. Clara knew the scars of fear and betrayal would remain, but the bond forged in those dark hours, between child, grandmother, and protector, was unbreakable. One evening, Clara stood outside, looking at the now empty barn. The wind rustled through the broken boards, but the shadows no longer seemed threatening. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Some stories end with tears, but they also end with hope." And for Mia, her grandmother, and the German shepherd, that hope was real. Fragile, yes, but undeniable. The night that threatened to consume them all had passed, leaving behind the quiet, persistent truth. Love, courage, and loyalty often arrive in unexpected forms. Clara bent down, scratching the dog's ears one last time. He leaned into her hand, eyes bright with understanding. For the first time, he seemed content, as if his duty had been fulfilled. Mia's voice broke the silence. "Can we keep him?" Clara smiled, her heart swelling with quiet joy. "Yes," she said. "He's ours now, and he'll never leave us." As the sun set behind the skeletal trees, casting long, golden streaks across the frozen fields, Ridgway felt lighter somehow. The barn was still there, weathered and scarred, but its shadow no longer held terror. The town had witnessed the end of one chapter of pain and the beginning of another, a story of survival, truth, and quiet, unyielding strength of a loyal heart. And in that light, the German shepherd lay at Mia's feet, eyes closed, knowing that sometimes the smallest guardians could leave the deepest marks on a human heart. The barn, once a symbol of fear, now stood as a reminder. Even in the darkest places, courage and love could carve out a space for redemption. Clara stepped back, watching the dog and the child together, the grandmother holding her hand. She felt a profound calm, a sense of closure that was almost holy in its simplicity. The storm had passed. The darkness lifted, not with grand gestures, but with quiet persistence, with human resilience, and with the steadfast loyalty of a dog who had seen the truth when no one else could. And Ridgway, small and hidden, continued to breathe,